Welcome to Updates from the Road on the Paddle and Portage podcast. We've been on the road. We're going to update you about it.
We have been to, down Lake Superior shoreline, of course, Highway 61, which is how we get out of Grand Marais when we're headed toward Duluth. Spent some time in Duluth on Friday afternoon on the 25th. Stopped at WDIO, the TV station on Observation Point Road, I think it is, WDIO.
One thing we've learned over the years is that when we get out of the county, we got to make the most of our time and make the most of our mission, which is telling stories for and about the wilderness and the wilderness community. And that's exactly what we did at WDIO with our good pal Baihly, as we went on live TV with the Snow Trekker tent set up right there in the studio to spread the word about the Winter Camping Symposium, which was our next destination, and to talk about how cool it is to be able to go out in the wintertime in a hot tent.
How was the experience being live on WDIO, talking about the tent? And obviously it was the first time they'd ever done anything quite like that. And we were right in the studio, and the 5 o'clock news was coming up next. Like, the anchors were there.
Put makeup on, I think, right?
Yes.
Like 5 feet away from when we were tearing down the tent. This woman walked past me in a rush to get her makeup going.
Yeah, and we were right in the way of where the cameras are and stuff. But, I mean, Bailey's a professional. We've known her for years, and she's great. So she just kind of guided us through the experience. But how did it go for you?
I mean, it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was exciting to roll in there, set up the tent, work with one of the producers to, find the sandbags, to anchor down the guy lines, and it just felt smooth and fun.
Yeah.
How about for you?
I sort of just zoned out and forgot exactly what we even said. Just went like, yeah, winter camping, Paddle and Portage, Bear Paulson and Posses.
What?
Hello.
I will say most folks who know us a little more personally say that they get kind of dumbfounded that we don't like script these things and we can just start talking, and it probably has pros and cons, but one of the pros to that is we didn't know what we were going to say until the camera was rolling, and the camera rolled. And
yeah, I'm sure it went just fine from their perspective. I mean, we had a tent set up in their news office and where they record the news, so that alone sort of stole or dominated the show.
Exactly. I think it's important to mention that as we start to talk about what came next, the Winter Camping Symposium, that this, these things just sort of not end up happening. They're coordinated efforts to go do these things, but it's because they're all in service to, like, it's a big deal to be able to jump in and talk about something like the Winter Camping Symposium and get the word out. And that's like the little bit that we get to do to help support and promote the crew.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and we've known the Winter Camping Symposium people, the sort of new generation who organizes it, if you will. It's been around for 25 years. This was the 25th year. And we've met the event organizers at Canoecopia and talked about it. They've encouraged us to come. And due to scheduling and so forth, it just hasn't worked out until this year. And it was so great to be there. And one of the people, in addition to the new event organizers we were just describing, who are in their 40s, we got to meet the founders of the Winter Camping Symposium, and we're going to hear a lot more from them about their story in the next full regular episode, if you will, fully produced episode of the podcast, coming out in early November sometime. But one of those is a gentleman named Dwayne, who started the Winter Camping Symposium, who is also the founder of Snow Trekker Tents, which are the canvas wall tents. That's what we had set up in WDIO's studio, and what the majority, not all of the tents at the symposium were Snow Trekkers, but a lot of them were, and Dwayne was there.
Yeah, before we jump into Dwayne and Snow Trekker, I just want to give a shout. You're going to hear, like Joe said, all about what the Winter Camping Symposium is, but these travels took us through Duluth down to Sturgeon Lake area for this giant event where there were, up to 300 people all gathering around this shared either passion or curiosity about winter camping. And a part of what makes this experience so unique is, yeah, there are those that stay in cabins or maybe local hotels, but there are countless winter camping setups all over the place. Some people in, like a couple of gals that we met who forgot their tent, bought one from Fleet Farm, on their way there once they realized they forgot their tent. Other people, $1,000 tents to the double-walled tent that is used in the Arctic, and then everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
Really cool experience.
Yeah, like not everybody had a wood stove. The people who forgot theirs had this Coleman tent they bought from Fleet Farm that you're describing, but other people just cold camping because they wanted to or didn't know what the hot tent setup was. Maybe they were there to learn, or they just don't have a hot tent or whatever the case might be. So it's a mixture of how people are spread out across this huge camp, YMCA Camp Miller, like tents everywhere, basically.
And I would say one of the most important themes to articulate before we get into more about Dwayne and some updates from Snow Trekker is that the Winter Camping Symposium feels very special because it is a community gathering experience, and the prime focus of it is experience of learning, of hanging out, of being together, big bonfires in the evening, and just a celebration of like-mindedness and curiosity. So that's perfect for the Paddle and Portage crew to be able to show up, Joe and I, and just listen.
Right.
And we heard a lot.
We did, and we're going to share that story and some of the good, the bad, the trouble about winter camping and traveling on ice and cold and the danger of traveling on ice, and even some of the issues that come up when you're talking about humans running in a big event like this. So that's all coming in the next full episode. And what a wonderful time it was at the symposium, though. Just in recap, is now we're talking on Sunday, late afternoon, and just reflecting in the little amount of time we've had on the road about it. Just nothing but good things to say about the symposium and all the hard work that goes into it. But, as we said, the Snow Trekker kind of reigns supreme around the symposium. It's the founder started the event, and it's just such a versatile, wonderful way to winter camp with the canvas wall tent and all the benefits of a Snow Trekker. And there was some buzz around this new model that they have coming out. Even our pal, the great Josh Dix here in Grand Marais, who's looking for a new hot tent for winter camping, knew about this sort of hybrid model. It's like a nylon and canvas blend, two different types of material included in the tent. And we got the lowdown on that from the new general manager, owner of Snow Trekker, who is Dwayne's son, who we got to talk to at the symposium.
Hi, Jonah from Snow Trekker Tents. Here today at the Winter Camping Symposium, and just talking about a new tent we're releasing. It's the hybrid that's going to be in our High Country series of tents and our 1313 Mega Crew. It's the tents with the vertical pipe. And really the idea behind it was to find a breathable structure, but still even lower weight even more. And we've been almost 2 years into this process of getting it done. And it takes time, and the reason behind it is lowering weight, maintaining breathability. There's a place for your Sil Nylon lightweight tents and backpacking and that sort of thing where you can still run a tent that's super light with a stove, but they're not breathable. So having that breathable structure that still is lowering weight was the whole idea and premise, but trying to come up with something and making it durable. And in the process of doing that, finding nylon where you could get it lightweight, ripstop, durable, waterproof, but also flame retardant. It took a long time to get the recipe right for the flame retardancy. And then additionally in the production process, we wanted this to be a complete package in a sense where when it comes to the customer, they're not setting up the tent and now I got to go buy my seam sealer for nylon seams because it doesn't swell like canvas. And the beauty of canvas is when it gets wet, and our canvas is sun forger treated, it swells and it locks out moisture. No matter what you do to nylon, it's not going to happen. So we need to have the seams sealed. And so these tents, figuring out that whole process of the unique design of our tents, how do we get the seams taped from the factory so when you get the tent, it's ready to go. You don't have to worry about any of that. Like, it's a set-up tent, it's ready to go. And the beauty behind it, in the Western market, packing in or pulking, tobogganing, you're looking at a tent in our 9.5 by 9.5 high country that was 22.5 to 23 pounds, tent and frame. You're looking at around 13 pounds now. In the 11 by 11, you're going from a 31 pound tent probably down to 23 pound tent. In our 1313 Mega Crew, you're at 37, you're going to be in the mid 20s. So it's huge. And what does that mean in the winter camping market? It means if I want a longer trip, I can take more food. If it's not necessarily a longer trip, I just don't have to work as hard. I can have a bigger stove, I can have a warmer fire. In the Western market, if you're packing in, that means 5-6 more days worth of food I can bring in. Or I can bring, I know there's this weather coming in, I can bring in the extra gear. And then additionally, a lot of the inception behind it and really working on this, we're getting more and more requests, not only camping trips, but hunting trips where they're flying in on helicopter or airplane, and there's weight limits. And having a breathable structure, especially in certain climates, you look at Alaska, other places like that, is huge, but you're restricted on weight. So you have a tent that might not necessarily meet your needs because it's full canvas, but we have to use it because we need a breathable structure because of the environment we're in that works, but it's not the ideal tent. It's either too big or it's too small, depending on what you're doing. You have a hybrid tent that meets your needs, but then also meets the weight restrictions that you're going with, especially flying in.
You had to work with your supplier to create a fabric for this product that has not existed prior to this.
Right, meeting that flame retardancy, that was a big thing. There's the waterproof nylons, they exist, but getting the recipe right for CPI 84 flame retardancy, that's huge. We have tents already built and they're just in the final processes of getting the seam sealed so that we can start rolling out.
Be ready for this winter in the Boundary Waters?
Absolutely. I would expect in the next 2 weeks we'll be able to start launching on our website.
Are you going to start pre-orders?
We're hoping initially to have a few built so that when it launches there's some available, but then it would be pre-ordered after that. If those sell out right away, then it would be a pre-order.
You're going to hear a lot more in the Winter Camping Symposium in the next full episode. As far as Joe and I goes, we woke up on Sunday morning, packed up, got on the road, and our hungry bellies called.
We stopped in Moose Lake, which is right near YMCA Camp Miller, where the symposium took place, on Sturgeon Lake, like right there on the lake shores where the event was. So it's maybe 5, 6, 7 miles up the road, up I-35 from there, Moose Lake. A small little town, 3,000 people live there, and we saw there was a sign for a diner, like the Moose Lake Diner type thing, and went there, not really sure what to expect, and blown away by the atmosphere, the service, the food made from scratch, like phenomenal place.
Yeah, a highly recommended must-visit place in Moose Lake. They have a bakery on site. It was delicious food. And that fueled us into the last leg of our update from the road, which was a stop in Duluth for a couple of beloved friends and their book release party.
New book from Dave and Amy Freeman. Of course, their first book, A Year in the Wilderness, about their 365 days they spent in the Boundary Waters. A few years ago, that's been now. They have a new book that just came out called North American Odyssey, and it's about their travels, their honeymoon, as they described it today at the event at Bent Paddle Brewing in Duluth. They did some readings from the book. Zenith, the bookstore, was sort of hosting that, co-hosting it with Bent Paddle. People from the Save the Boundary Waters campaign were there, and it was so great to see Dave and Amy, and picked up a copy of the book.
It's always great to see Dave and Amy. We got to get some personal updates from their lives, their travels ahead, and schedule an interview with them for, what will be a fantastic update and synopsis from this book. And we look forward to bringing that to you on a full episode in the future. All in service to making the most of our time on the road. Joe Fredericks.
Right. It's become a way that we do travel is when we're out there, particularly sort of doing the stuff for Paddle and Portage and in that mode of capturing stories, and every person we meet's a potential interview, and just it's kind of in that on mode, so to say, is that it's an interesting way to travel. It's just become a lifestyle kind of thing for us after years of doing this.
One of I don't want to say favorites, one of the individuals who got to spend the most time with at the symposium was a fellow named Pete, and he's been a part of it for many years now, contributes a lot of personal energy to the event. And he asked, so do you think you guys will come back, again, and not for the podcast? And I remember saying, Peter, this is how I exist in the world. That's what I will do as long as I'm here, is talk to folks and ask questions and do interviews, because this is how we get to exist in the world, and it's an honor to be doing that wherever we go.
Yeah, right. And it's fun. It's fun to have that added layer of curiosity, and what a joy it was to meet all these people that we did, some familiar faces from events like Canoecopia, some new people we'd never met, and great to see some people there too wearing Paddle and Portage shirts. And Bear Paulson, one of the new owners, along with Ann Pastas of Paddle and Portage, was the keynote speaker on Saturday night, and
wearing his Paddle and Portage cap.
And gave a shout out to Paddle and Portage. Thank you, Bear. And Pam Wright, who's been a contributor to Paddle and Portage since one of the, I think the first issue or first couple issues for sure. She was the keynote speaker on Friday night. So we had a pretty robust presence at the event, which was awesome, and just wonderful to meet and talk with so many people over the few days, and then carry that through and see Dave and Amy today, and talk to some more people there, and get back home here. Winds howling out on Lake Superior right now, huge waves driving up 61. It seemed to only intensify as we got back here just a little bit before dark on Sunday, and just wonderful to spend some time on the road.
A few days here, and then I'm headed back to Ely in 48 hours, so better go get a little rest, huh? Don't you think, Freddie?
That's right. And spend some time over in the new Ely office. It's up and running. You'll see the sign up in the upper window there. It's just right in that downtown area. We'll be spending a lot of time over there and moving ahead. And but for tonight, good to be home.
Thanks for listening.